What's up everyone, Lion Roar here, and a few days ago in the Gods Unchained Discord they announced that they're going to be testing a possible nerf to armor. Now of course they called it a balance update, and this is something that on Reddit a lot of players have been calling for, saying that armor is too overpowered, while others are saying it's a nice unique twist to the game, don't touch my armor. So we're going to talk about the controversy today and how it's affecting gameplay, at least as far as how they're testing it. Let's dive in. But first, join me over in Gemstone Legends. It's a fantastic match 3 RPG game, and it's players that get in early on games like this that are at the biggest advantage. Not only will you help the channel out by using the link in the description of this video, but you're going to get a free epic hero named Moralia along with a bunch of gold, gems, and potions. After you download the game, you'll have access to events which will get you even more amazing heroes and loot. Guys, wow, you don't want to miss this opportunity because you do not get it in the regular App Store. Download it now, and I will see you in Gemstone Legends. Alright, so first let's talk about what armor is and how it works. I know a lot of you probably already understand this, but for newer players, when you have a creature like Guild Enforcer here that says Armor 1, when you play it, it comes down with a little shield that comes above the 5 health that's listed here. And it has a little 1 in it, meaning that every 1 damage it takes, anytime it's dealt damage, is basically canceled out. So if you only deal 1 damage to the Guild Enforcer, it basically deals no damage. You'd have to deal 6 damage to the Guild Enforcer in order to kill it all at once. But what makes armor so powerful is that you can't just take 2, 3 damage burn spells and kill it. So for example, with the Rune of Fire, which deals 3 damage, if you use 1 on it, the 1 armor is going to soak up 1 damage and deal 2 damage. Then if you use another Rune of Fire, for example, it's going to again cancel 1 damage and deal 2. At that point, you've only dealt 4 damage to the Guild Enforcer's health, and it's still alive, and that means that you'd also still have to deal at least 2 more damage in order to kill it, meaning that any creature that has armor soaks up a lot of damage. And some people think that the reason this is too powerful is because if you can imagine playing like the zombie deck, for example, which has a lot of little 1/1 creatures. Well, if a Guild Enforcer goes down with armor 1, it's almost impossible for the zombie deck to get through that, because those little 1/1 zombies are never going to deal damage to the Guild Enforcer. They're just going to kind of bounce right off of it. And if the board is already filled with 1/1 creatures, for example, there's nothing you can do. So I think what potentially makes some creatures so powerful with armor is when that front line is tagged onto it, of which there's a lot. Now, it's beautiful flavor text. I mean, think about it. Like a frontline warrior or guard should probably have armor as flavor text on it, just, to be consistent. So it makes sense to be there. But what often happens is when you combine these 2 mechanics, it means that the opponent is just completely stopped in their tracks and can't get through. Now, yes, there's a lot of creative ways to try and get through or around armor. And I'm not going to talk about that right here. So that is what is making some people who like to play armor cards nervous. They're saying there's already ways to deal with this. So like, get creative or make sure that's in your deck or adapt to the meta. I don't think there needs to be a change to armor, because what happens when you nerf unique mechanics is it makes the game uninteresting. So why don't we dive into what they're actually planning on changing and see if this is actually going to potentially wipe out a mechanic in the game, or, answer the question, are the cards actually even going to get worse? Because I don't know that they will, but let's see why. So on February 15th, Eclipse posted in the Gods Unchained Discord, "Hey everyone, we're back again with another PTR test, this time to the armor mechanic. With Armor 2.0, anytime an armored creature takes damage that reduces its health, it will also lose 1 armor. So this is a big change, because if we go back to that Guild Enforcer example, now that little 1/1 zombie can actually ping the Guild Enforcer, remove its armor, and now you can go to town on it trying to kill it with the other 1/1 zombies. Now this is just one specific example. Of course, there are a lot of creatures that have more than 1 armor, but now it makes it not impossible for decks that have small creatures to get through. So she says, Why this change? Well, over the course of Divine Order's release, we found that armor is extremely powerful in any amount higher than 1 and has the potential to lock out board states early. We think these changes allow higher armor amounts than 1 to exist without causing frequent toxic board states, but don't take our word for it. Jump on the PTR test to find out and tell us what you think. Okay, so I was giving you an example of an armor of 1 and showing you how powerful that potentially is. But, you know, at least with armor 1, there were ways to kill that creature relatively, I wouldn't say easily, it's not easy. Typically, you end up getting 2 for 1 or 3 for 1 or worse whenever there's a creature with armor 1, just like that Guild Enforcer. But yeah, when you start talking about armor 2, 3, 4, of which there are cards and there's ways to do that and go even higher, then yes, that makes it almost impossible to get through. And if you somehow add frontline onto that or do it to a frontline creature, that can just really stop the opponent from playing. That is what no card game wants. No game at all wants a mechanic where a player can't play. Players are there to play the game. So if you get a board state that stops players from playing, that's a problem. So what they've done is now make it so that you can reduce armor. And I think the flavor on this is actually even better than the old armor. So armor 2.0 makes sense. When a creature has a shield on, what will happen over time, or should happen over time, is that the integrity of that shield weakens as it gets hit, right? So this is so cool. And I love that they are being really creative and taking risks. Like with armor, I want to see a game take risks, and it has the potential to be overpowered or underpowered, but as long as the game has a mechanic built in to adjust things a little bit to make it work well with the rest of the game, that's really important. So that's why we do have this time period for balance updates. And I think that being able to wear down another creature's armor still has that desired effect of potentially 2 for 1ing, 3 for 1ing an opponent, but doesn't make it impossible. So what do I think about this? Well, I think for the creatures that have armor 1, like the Guild Enforcer, this means that they're, well, not much better than just a pretty generic creature that has 1 extra health. For example, the Guild Enforcer might as well be a 5 mana, 3/6 creature at that point, because, you know, when you deal that 1 damage to the armor, it's like dealing a damage to a health, and then it's gone. So really, what's the point of armor 1? There really isn't much of a point at that point. So I think a creature like Guild Enforcer is going to become a lot worse because of this. Other creatures that have higher than 1 armor, I think are going to be pretty good still. And in fact, I think it's going to create a lot more interesting board states where you try to use some spells or things that give armor, because it is a clock that ticks down pretty slowly and could soak up a number of your opponent's cards. So in order to make sure that cards weren't weakened too much, Gods Unchained is buffing a lot of the cards that have armor. So I'm going to go through not all of them, but a few of the most played cards to talk about how Gods Unchained is planning to buff them to make up for the weakening of the armor. First up, we have Smith's Hammer, and this is a relic that has traditionally been used to make a board state of smaller medium creatures basically indestructible. And also with potentially bigger creatures that have tricky mechanics like frontline, for example. It does have 2 durability, so it can come out and give that 2 armor, which right now is what Gods Unchained is saying is potentially too powerful. So what they're proposing to do, because of the weakening of armor, is to also decrease the mana cost of this relic. Now that's the only change they're going to make to it, but they're going to take it from 5 to 4. The problem with Smith's Hammer in the past is, of course, it is kind of slow being 5 mana, and also it doesn't have blitz or anything, so it's typically like turn 6, maybe turn 5, if you've been using some of your mana gems to get it out a little bit earlier, that you can potentially use this. You better have a board state out, it better survive. I do think that this change to armor is potentially going to weaken this one beyond playability, but that's just my opinion. Another card that I really like and I use in a lot of decks is Bronze Gate, and that's because it comes down at a really nice 3 mana, and it's got 2 attack and 3 health. It is a frontline creature that can't attack, and it's got that armor 1, so this is a great way to stop those little aggressive decks that only have like potentially 1 attack on them. They can't get through this thing. And, you know, even the creatures that have 2 attack are often like, you know, your 2-for-1ing, 3-for-1ing or more your opponents with them trying to get through the bronze gate, it stops aggressive decks like right in their tracks. But the opposing deck doesn't have to absolutely be aggressive. This also does stall out some medium or big beast type of decks too, because although they'll kill it for sure, it does take a turn for them to try and hit it, and it can still soak up a card or two potentially doing that, or at least dealing a good amount of damage. Oftentimes they have to hit it twice, and that deals 4 damage whether the creatures die or not. So in order to balance this one out, they're going to increase the stats from the 2 attack and 3 health to 2 attack and 4 health. If you put the armor 1 on, that means it's basically got 5 health. Now, remember I said that the armor 1 is probably going to be a little too weak. It's the armor 2, armor 3, armor 4, and beyond that are still going to be very, very powerful, because now at this point it's basically saying like you need to deal 5 damage to this to kill it. It's still going to be very good because this comes down at a great rate and really stalls the board out. So I see this one being weakened just a little bit, but still probably about as good. Another one that's played a lot is the aspect of the Pangolin. And this is used in not really like a combo deck, but something like that, because you want to pair this +3 armor with a really, really difficult to deal with creature that has some kind of tricky text on it. You know, something that already has a lot of armor, so it's impossible to kill, or putting it on like a frontline creature, or something that when it sticks around, it's creating a lot of value for its owner. What they're going to do with this one is decrease the mana cost from 4 to 3, and they're going to change the text from give +3 armor to a random friendly creature to give +2 armor to one of your creatures. So now it's a smaller buff spell. That's about the right size mana cost for a buff spell. Armor 2 is going to be a lot easier to get rid of than armor 3. So this one may be weakening the card a little bit too much in my opinion, but what's going to happen is it's still going to soak up 2 damage the first time that it's hit with any kind of damage, and it's still going to soak up another damage after that. I kind of wish they would just leave it +3 armor, because for a spell that's not a permanent, it doesn't stick around on the battlefield. It's like a one-time thing that's used. You want it to last over multiple turns, and although it's a lot easier to get rid of a creature with the changes and only +2 armor. Now that card has often been used with Spiny Porcupine, which also has armor +4 to start with. So really it's a 1/1 creature with 4 armor. What's making this creature so fun, I will say, this is like a super fun card, but so hard to deal with, is that like with the armor 4 and 1 health, it takes 5 damage of a single instance to get through, and that is a lot. That's almost like too much to get through at once, because a lot of decks are not going to be able to deal 5 damage at once, which means that, well, any of their creatures that try to like kill this thing or get through it are really just bouncing off of it and not doing much. You almost have to ignore it, which isn't always possible because of the other cards the opponent might play, giving like frontline or something like that to Spiny Porcupine, or just making it so big with other buff spells that like you can't leave it alive, but you can't kill it either. The other text currently on this card says, after this creature survives an attack by an enemy creature, deal 2 damage to the enemy creature. I love that text because it's super flavorful for something like Spiny Porcupine. But they're going to significantly change this card, at least testing it out. So first of all, they're going to increase the stats and change the text. So the stats are going to go from a 1/1 creature to a 2 attack, 3 health creature. And it's going to have armor 4 still. So, I mean, that's like 7... Oh my gosh, that's like 7 HP on it if you're going to try and kill it with 1, bout of damage. But of course, with armor 4, it's going to soak up 4 the first time and cancel it out, then 3, then 2, then 1. That is a lot of damage that this thing's going to soak up. And then it says, after this creature survives an attack by an enemy creature, deal 2 damage to the enemy creature, changing it to, after this creature takes damage, deal the damage taken to a random enemy creature. That's amazing. That's an amazing change. This is going to be a really good creature, even after the change. In fact, I kind of think it might be better, because think about it. Let's say that you're sending a huge creature at Spiny Porcupine to try and kill it, and then that damage just gets reflected off to another creature. It can kill almost anything depending on how big that is. So it's going to create a puzzle on the board for the opponent who's trying to kill it to try and solve. I really like this card. I think the change is actually going to make this more flavorful and fun. We also have one more card that is often used, and that is the giant pangolin. For this one, they're going to change the text from Armor 1, Blitz, and Confused, which you see here as a 6 attack and 4 health creature, to Armor 2, Blitz, and Confused. It's still going to be a very, very good creature because being able to drop a 6, basically a 6/6 type of creature, and then blitz with it and kill other creatures and protect it a little bit with armor is going to be good. I think 2 armor is just enough for this because it'll take 2 instances of damage to get rid of it before you can really start to whittle down the health a lot here. So I think that's just right. I think this weakens giant pangolin just a little bit, maybe not. We'll have to see it in testing and how it is. But I think it's negligible. I think for a deck that's already playing giant pangolin, you're probably just going to keep playing it. So, one final thought on armor here is that I do think this change will create more interesting board states. And there's some new things you're going to be able to do with armor. For example, in the Sanctum, you can get a couple of those different archers that will come down and ping an opposing creature for 1. Well, you could potentially use the Sanctum now to get one of those creatures and ping the armor off of it so that your bigger creatures can smash through and kill it. So that is one of the cool things, especially if you can do that a couple times in one turn. Like, think about it this way. You like put down a creature that pings it once, pings it twice, the armor's gone, and now all of a sudden you can smash through it if you need to. So overall, I am excited about these possible changes. I haven't personally tested it myself. If you have, let me know in the comments what you think about it. Is it weakening these cards too much, or is the balance by buffing the actual cards themselves going to outweigh it? I'm really curious. And if you enjoy content like this, please make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and hit the bell notification so you know when I drop new videos or go live, and I will catch you in the next one.